I'm going to read the statement right now. So good afternoon. My name is Conor Newman. I'm the Mayor's Liaison to the Allston-Brighton neighborhood. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. I'm here tonight to facilitate this statutorily required cannabis community outreach hearing. This application by Pure Oasis LLC is applying for a recreational adult use cannabis license. It's going to be operated at 535 Washington Street in Brighton. Before we start, I'd like to go over my expectations for tonight's meeting. Having participated in multiple meetings of this kind, I know this can be a sensitive topic. I want to make sure that reiterate that no decisions are being made tonight, and at no time will it be acceptable to be disrespectful to anyone during this meeting. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. There is no right or wrong opinion. Here tonight to try to collect as many comments as possible and questions for this proposal. I'm here to facilitate this process, but not to facilitate debates. If your neighbors have a different opinion than you, I ask that you be respectful. I ask that all questions be directed either to myself or the applicant. The applicant will answer all questions related to the proposal to the best of their ability, and I will answer questions specific to the city process. If I am unable or the applicants are unable to answer your questions tonight, we will follow up with you after the meeting and get you that information that you have requested. This is an open comment period, meaning that if you not get called on tonight, or if you think of a question after the presentation, all you need to do is reach out to my office and we will work to get you that information. My contact information has been included on the flyer that you received to attend this meeting. It's also just my first last name, boston.gov. That is the formula for all city employee emails. There will be no presentation, there will be no questions during the presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, I will again reiterate my expectations. To reiterate, this is not a debate on the legalization or the morality of marijuana. That debate occurred at the ballot box, and Allston-Brighton voted overwhelmingly to legalize marijuana. We're here to talk about this specific location and this specific proposal. The applicant will go through the presentation in a timely manner, and the remainder of the meeting will be orderly, and questions and comments will be towards the end. Thank you again for taking the time to participate in tonight's meeting. I will now hand it over to the applicant for the presentation. All right, Kobe, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Kobe Evans. I am the co-founder of Boston's first recreational cannabis dispensary. The name of our operation is Pure Oasis. We've been open in Dorchester for a little over a year. We originally opened on March 9th, 2020, right before the pandemic. I am here with my business partner and co-owner, Kevin Hart, and we like to give this opportunity to more so you, the neighborhood of butters, to hear more from you. But we'll start off our presentation giving some background about our company, but the bulk of this presentation is going to be dedicated to hearing from the abutters and the neighbors to hear about their potential concerns about this growing new industry of cannabis. With that being said, I'd like to go into our presentation. Conor, is that something that you launch, or do we do a screen share for the presentation?
As panelists, you should be able to launch it yourself. So if you look up at the top, file, edit, share.
Okay, so what I don't have is the ability to share my screen for, unfortunately. It's all grayed out for me.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
That's true for me also, Conor.
All right. Apologize, give me 1 second, folks. All right, I might have to do it on my end. My apologies.
No worries.
Kobe, I should have the most up-to-date one, I believe.
Yes, you do.
Difficult time loading it.
No worries.
All right, here we go.
Perfect.
Okay, see that all right? So
Yeah.
yeah, just let me know. I'm gonna mute myself, and when you just flag it, I will scroll down.
When you say flag, it does give you a heads up.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so is it possible can you run the slides from there? Or do you just have to scroll through the individual slides?
Just taking a look.
Yeah, so under slide, it should allow you to run it. Oh. Okay, so
Is it not allowing you to put it in presentation mode?
no, I think that's Google Docs. I'm not sure. I don't know that they'll allow him to do it from. Yeah, let's just go through it like that, Connor.
Okay.
So yeah, so if you can go to, so again, this is 535 Washington Street. It's the former Swan Cleaners. And so one of the things about the site that we felt would be a good fit for what we're trying to do is the fact that it's been vacant for some time. It's kind of blighted in that area because it's been closed, and it's a good opportunity to kind of revitalize that corner and to give back to the neighborhood by changing the facade and just overall adding to the beautification of that area of Washington Street. What you'll also see is that it's located not too close to the YMCA. It's pretty considerably far away as far as we're concerned, and there are no other schools in the neighborhood. And so we've learned from opening up in Grove Hall that we have to do our homework as it relates to impediments in the neighborhood that might be a concern to the neighborhood or might be outside of the reach of zoning for cannabis. And so what you'll see in the map is that, again, there aren't any schools or any issues with any areas of gathering for children that may come up as a potential zoning issue. If you go to the next slide, Connor.
There we go.
So again, this is just a picture of the current Swan Cleaners in its current conditions. In its heyday, it was probably pretty busy and a cornerstone for the neighborhood. And what we're looking to do is to do a full renovation on the building. And then the next slide, you'll see a rendering of what it will look like when all the work is done. Part of the regulations for a cannabis dispensary is that all the windows have to be opaque, meaning that people on the street cannot see inside. And so this rendering does a little bit of demonstrating what that would look like. As a passerby, if you walk by, you would not be able to see what is happening inside or any activity to that nature. The next slide is a rendering of what the renovated inside of the dispensary will look like. This is a departure of what we're doing in Grove Hall. In Grove Hall, when we opened a dispensary, we were the first to do it in the state. We were the first economic empowerment applicants, and we were the first to have a minority-owned dispensary on the East Coast. We also didn't have a lot of money to open that first dispensary, so our budget was slim. We did a lot of the work ourselves, but going forward, what we're looking to do is not only renovate Grove Hall, but also to kind of step up our game as it relates to some of the branding and design elements. So this is a rendering of what it would look like inside the new shop. What we're going to see across Boston and across the states as more and more dispensaries open is the fact that there won't be the kind of traffic that people witnessed in Northampton back in 2019 when cannabis shops first opened, and you had people from multiple states and the state of Massachusetts converging on one town. So what this depiction, this rendering represents is the fact that this will probably be one of the smaller shops in Boston, because the model is moving towards more of neighborhood locations versus the Nettas in the bigger locations, kind of, compared to what we have in Grove Hall. Our anticipation is that the foot traffic is going to be nominal. Therefore, I think on this one, we only have no more than 5 registers. We may actively use 3 registers a day, but we don't expect that this location will be like more of the earlier locations with heavy foot traffic. Next slide. So this is just a little bit about Kevin and I. And as I mentioned, Pure Oasis is a locally owned company. We're minority owned, and we're the first designated economic empowerment dispensary to open in the state. That wasn't our goal when we launched this endeavor. I grew up in Boston. Kevin has been here for 20 years. And so when we got into this business, what we wanted to do is to take advantage of opportunities that were presenting itself to have people from Boston to participate in the local cannabis market. And so we attempted to be part of that. What we didn't expect was that we would end up being the first dispensary in a major city on the East Coast. And to that event, we have cut our teeth in this venture, and we have the lived experience of growing up in an urban environment, but also running a dispensary in a major city and seeing, what that takes and how to be successful, and also how to be good business partners in the community. Next slide. So again, just to touch on a little more, we opened in March of 2020. We had the mayor at our grand opening. We had numerous elected officials, and it was symbolic and for a number of reasons. But I think as it relates to Brighton, the symbolism was represented by the fact that we were opening a dispensary in a busy part of the city, the first dispensary in a major city, and we had the support of the city. And we had a partnership that allowed for us to support our neighborhood, to support the businesses that also share the space where we are, and to learn and to grow and to understand what it means to be good community partners. And so with that, we hope to bring that expertise to Brighton as we open our next location. Next slide. Operations are key to our dispensary, and I'm going to say this over and over again because it's key. Today, for instance, is one of the busiest days in the cannabis industry, and it's called 420, and it's kind of the Super Bowl of the industry. And so as we were operating today, we were going through some issues with our point of sale systems, and we worked through those issues. And that's demonstrative of what our journey has been like over the last year, in as much as working through some issues and becoming experts at running a business in an urban environment in an inner city. And so we have perfected and created relationships with experts to help us be the best that we can possibly be at running an operation. And we have a proven track record. And so we're pleased that we can venture into Brighton and to bring that expertise, because what it means is that there's not going to be that kind of learning as we grow. We are bringing that expertise to understand what potentially could become a problem and address issues before they mushroom. Next slide. Our security protocols are driven primarily through the state. We have standard operating protocols that we follow to make sure that we are adhering to the rules and regulations promulgated by the Cannabis Control Commission. Our security partner is Dan Linsky, formerly of the Boston Police Department, and he is now with Kroll. And so we have a working relationship with Dan in his years of experience, understanding the intelligence that goes into building a security system, having the network, and also having the partnerships with Boston Police Department so that they're always a phone call away. We work hand in hand with the CCC to design our security apparatus so that A, it has redundancies, and B, it fits the needs to keep us safe and also to keep the community safe. Next slide. When we first looked at opening Grove Hall, one of the major issues that community members had was very obvious, and it was, are people going to be smoking weed out on the street? And we were very concerned about it because a lot of people equate cannabis dispensaries with liquor stores, and liquor stores sell nips, and sometimes you have a situation where a neighborhood is inundated by people who will drink and hang out and they'll loiter. And so we were super sensitive to this potential issue because the last thing that we wanted was to be kind of detrimental and bring a bad element to a neighborhood. And so we had a lot of protocols in place to make sure that we weren't going to cause any issues in the neighborhood. And to our surprise, and maybe it was more of the planning, is that we actually have had no issues with loitering in the last year since we've been open. Cannabis is such that people come, they want to get in as quickly as possible, purchase and get out as quickly as possible, and go home and about their way. I guess there's some misconceptions in terms of people hanging out and smoking. We have had no issues and seen no issues of loitering. And so we were very prepared to deal with it. But, over the last year and, a month or so, we've had no issues of having to call the police or reprimand any customers about loitering. Next slide. Diversion is a big key for us because one of the last things that we want to do is to be responsible for cannabis getting into the hands of anyone under the age of 21. And so we work very hard based on our own security apparatus and also based on adhering to the rules of the CCC and the laws of Massachusetts. And so we run a pretty tight ship where if you want to come into our shop, A, you must be 21 and you have to present ID before you even come in the door. Secondly, you can't even see inside the shop if you're a passerby. And so for the most part, you have no idea what's going on inside. And we want to make sure that, there is no opportunity for someone to purchase cannabis and transfer that to someone underage. And so we track how much we sell to any individual person to make sure that they're not consuming more than the law, purchasing more than the law allows. And we also have the ability to go back and figure out who we sold what to, just again, to make sure that there is no no instance of diversion, no instance of someone reselling cannabis to someone underage. Next slide. One of the areas that we've excelled at Pure Oasis is providing jobs to people in the community. Kevin and I have some lived experience growing up in urban environments, in situations where a high degree of poverty exists. And so we pride ourselves on being driven around giving back and giving people opportunities. And a lot of our managers, a lot of our supervisors started off as security guards, and we saw something in them and we elevated them through different promotions, and whether they ended up being a supervisor or assistant general manager or even a general manager, we like to hire within, we like to train, we like to promote. And we like to find, people who haven't necessarily had a fair chance in, maybe a corporate environment, but does well in a retail cannabis environment. So we like people who have been rejected from other jobs, and we like to try and give them opportunities. And a lot of times it works out, and so we're happy about that. You know, we have people who walk to work, we have people who drive to work and take the T. And we really like to have people from the community because it builds relationships with our customers because they become very relatable. Next slide. With that, it speaks to our commitment to the community. Again, you know, Kevin and I, we have roots here in Massachusetts, in Boston. And as we drive down the street and we see people that we know, we have a responsibility to uphold the standards of the city and to be good neighbors and good business partners. And what we don't want to do is to create a business that ultimately ends up being a hardship on any community. And so we take pride and responsibility in making sure that anywhere we open a Pure Oasis, that is only going to be an asset to the community in which we are a part of. And so we hold that near and dear to our heart, that at any time, anyone can call us and address any concern, and we're going to be responsible. To this date, we have had three community meetings in Grove Hall. You know, our face is very well known in the community, and yet and still we have had no neighbor that has come to us to express any concerns about our business. In fact, at the shop today, I ran into a neighbor that was very concerned about us potentially opening at Grove Hall at one of our community meetings. And we had a great conversation, you know, because at the end of the day, people realize that it may be scary with the idea of opening a dispensary, but once it actually happens and you see that it doesn't change the face of the neighborhood, I think people end up being proud of us for, you know, not backing down and realizing that it's a good thing at the end of the day, because we create new business partners and new community partners, because other businesses are able to thrive because all of a sudden our customers are buying pizza, or they're getting their nails done, or they're going to the local, you know, CVS, and other businesses tend to appreciate that. Next slide. Social justice is a key word that kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of cannabis businesses, because there are a lot of people currently incarcerated for, you know, possessing weed or selling weed, and all of a sudden it's turning into $1 billion market. And so we have to be responsible as owners of Pure Oasis to give back and to understand that Pure Oasis is a socially conscious business, in that we have a big part of our mission is dedicated to giving back and to being good community partners, and being conscious of the fact that there's always more that could be done around social justice. So we strive to create jobs in community and to improve lives of the people in our neighborhoods, and to try and change the trajectory of a lot of people's lives. And there are people who have queries and can't get a job at Target, but we'll be more than happy to employ them at Pure Oasis. And so that's always going to be a big part of our mission statement, and we live by that. Next slide. One of the things that you'll notice is we try and keep our presentation short and sweet, because we don't want to lull people to sleep with over information. This presentation is part of our community outreach. And so we want to talk a little bit about Pure Oasis, but more so we want to hear from community members and understand what some of the concerns are, and to speak to those concerns. So at this time, we'd love to open it up and have Conor moderate the session and hear more from community members to really understand what their take on it is.
Great. Thank you. So yeah, we'll open up for questions and comments. We have plenty of time. Before that, though, I just want to give recognition to, we have a couple of representatives from elected officials' offices. We have Jen Migliori from Rep Moran's office, and we have Wayne from Councillor Brayton's office. If I am overlooking anyone, we have 48 attendees right now. My apologies. Please reach out, and I will also give you a shout out as well. I see we kind of have a couple of hands raised right now, so I'm going to go with Barbara Hannigan. I'm going to unmute you if you want to go ahead.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Evans and Mr. Hart. I live on Graymere Road, and my house abuts the parking lot that goes to the apartment building. And I have several concerns. My first concern is the traffic. You said that you wanted to, you were concerned about the beautification of the neighborhood. And my concern with the traffic is right now we contend with Boston College, Boston University, Northeastern, Harvard, Suffolk, all of the colleges. And the traffic in this area, because of the student population, is considerable. Oftentimes, you can't even get out of the street. I can't go from Graymere Road to Washington Street without sitting for a significant period of time. So I'm extremely concerned about the traffic. I'm also concerned about the car accidents. I've lived on this street for over 35 years. There have been several car accidents due to the corner, the way that Washington Street sort of bends with the buses and traffic. Currently, we deal with the two businesses that are on the opposite corner. One specifically oftentimes has a big tractor trailer delivering goods or whatever to that business. And so there's oftentimes people are trying to go around that big tractor trailer, and it's difficult to see. So I'm concerned about the car accidents. I'm also concerned about the schools. You said there were no schools in the area, yet there are actually three. There is the Garfield, the Mary Lyons, and then over on Lake Street is the Edison. Also, the YMCA has a program that sponsors after school programs. They sponsor Halloween parties, they sponsor holiday and birthday parties. So there are children in the area all of the time, not including those that live here currently. We also have Rogers Park, which sponsors the Little League Baseball and other activities for the young children that live in this area. I'm concerned about the parking. There's no parking in your area. Behind your building, I know that there's a couple of spaces, maybe 3 or 4 spaces, but the majority of your customers are going to have to park on the street. Currently already, there's a very parking is at a premium in this area, and I'm concerned that there's going to be an overwhelming whether people are trying to double park. You said that people want to get in as quickly as possible. They're anxious to come in and come out. So I suspect people will have to double park if they're anxious to get in and get out of there quickly. And that's just going to monopolize the limited parking that we have.
Thank you, Barbara. All right. Sheila, you have a question next? Sheila, sorry. All right, Sheila, you should be unmuted now.
Okay, you can hear me now, yeah. I mean, I agree with a lot of the concerns about that the last speaker brought up, so I won't go through them all. But for us, it's the parking. We're just around the corner and regularly get blocked in our driveway with people parking to visit the businesses that are already there. And I mean, it was a nice presentation, and thanks to the presenter, but it didn't address that issue at all. The other, I had a question as well, is how many people do they anticipate serving, we'll say, in a day? Because there is no place for them to pull in. I mean, I drive by there 3 or 4 times a day, and there's no parking. There's rarely spaces out in front of Swan Cleaners.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Kobe, would you guys anticipate, would you have kind of a, from your other Grove Hall location, would you have an estimate on the number of customers you'd expect in a day? I know there's a lot of variables there, and is there a parking plan?
So the hard part about parking is that the volume is predicated on the number of cannabis dispensaries that are open across the city. And so right now, for instance, you have Boston has Pure Oasis, it has Seed, and there will probably be another 3 before the end of the year. So as you get more and more dispensaries open, that pulls away from the demand at any one particular dispensary. Our plan is that we aren't competing with people from Alston. We aren't competing with people from Boston University. We're looking at being a neighborhood dispensary similar to the liquor store 2 blocks down. And in Grove Hall, what we're seeing that we believe will be the new model is more people will come from within the neighborhood, and we're not looking to attract from outside the neighborhood. And ultimately, there will be dispensaries down the road in Alston, down the road in Brighton Center, down the road near New Balance. You'll have every neighborhood has their own dispensary where you take your dog for a walk, you stop in at the dispensary on your way home. And so we're intentionally not looking to pull from any other neighborhood than people who are in walking distance or bike ride from the current swamp cleaners.
Thank you. I saw a hand raised. Sorry, I'm just trying to, you have a number of hands raised. So folks, I'm going to get through everybody. I thought I saw someone in the comment section, but I can't find them right now. Leanne, would you like to go ahead?
Of the dispensary.
Sorry, Leanne, I think you just cut in there. You might have already started. If you want to just repeat yourself.
What are the hours of operation?
So one of the things that we learned from Grove Hall that we would probably do in Brighton is to have hours of operation from 10 to 10. What that does is that it spreads out your customer base. So you're not getting a concentration of customers at any one particular time. It gives people the flexibility to stop in when it's convenient. In that way, you don't get the kind of crowds from having limited hours.
Okay, my next comment is, it's more a comment. I live on Langley Road, and the parking issue is so severe here. Waiting for the next 5 or 10 years for other dispensaries to open is kind of a long time. I want to just tell you a little bit about Langley Road. It's a very narrow street. It's 2-way. And what happens is a lot of times when people are trying to find a parking space, they'll keep circling and circling. And Langley Road is a lot of families living on the street. And with the kind of parking problems that we already have, which are extremely severe, I'm very dubious about, it being just a walk-in neighborhood establishment. I'm wondering if there's any way that for us to even begin to consider this, if you could rent parking somewhere and find a shuttle or something like that to ease the pressure in this neighborhood, because that to me is prohibitive in terms of your opening your establishment.
Sure, that's something we can definitely investigate, the parking shuttle.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to call the next person. Folks that I am calling on with your hands raised, after you finish your question or comment, could you please lower your hand? It'll make my life a lot easier, and I'll be able to call on your neighbors a lot quicker. Irene, I see you have your hand raised. I'm going to unmute you now if you'd like to go ahead.
Hello, my name is Irene Belibasakis. My parents own a house at 512 Washington Street, right across the street on the corner of Graymere in Washington. I've lived there for about 3 years with my husband and my 2 kids. And I have to disagree with the proximity to schools and the YMCA. I would stroll my son to the YMCA for activities or to the park. And I know there is multiple schools in that area. So that's my one concern that I know that Mrs. Hannigan raised. My second concern is the volume of customers that you will get, and having tenants see that from their window is, to me, it's not a sight that you want to see when you're paying high rents in that area, to see a line full of people coming in and out all hours of the day. That's my second concern. My third concern is the parking. Parking's always been an issue. What was my other concern? Your other store that you have in Boston, what's its location? Is it in a residential area or is it more of a commercial area? Because I'm not opposed to you guys coming in. It's just being in a residential area where owners are paying high real estate taxes and tenants are paying high rents. Is it okay? You know, that's my concern, is should you be located in a residential area with families? I know the college kids are going to love you guys. I know my kids would love you. And my sons actually have bought from their friends that have, you know, medicinal licenses. And I see these big jars of cannabis in my house and I'm just like, oh my God, what are you doing? Mom, but it's coming from a reputable place. You know, don't you care that we have good stuff? I'm like, get it out. So that's my other concern. I do like that you're going to monitor each client as far as how much they can purchase, but I've seen big mason jars in my house from their friends that have licenses. So it's not that I'm opposed to you. It's the traffic and the kids and our tenants that pay a lot of money. That's my concern, and the elderly population that's around there as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Irene. Yeah, Kobe, if you could talk, not all residents are familiar with necessarily all the parts of the city. Could you kind of describe whereabouts in Grove Hall it is and kind of what that neighborhood is like?
Yeah, so Grove Hall is, you know, probably one of the, it's up there in terms of older neighborhood. It's a mixed use neighborhood. It has a supermarket, it has a Dunkin' Donut. It has maybe, it's a little similar to Oak Square. It probably doesn't have as many businesses, but it does, where we are now, does have a considerable amount of businesses. There are a lot of neighbors. There are way more neighbors. There's way more residents than there are businesses. We by no means is this downtown. Grove Hall may be a little analogous to being in Oak Square, but it's somewhere between being in Oak Square and, it may be similar to being in Brighton Center, but it's a little bit of a combination of Brighton Center and Oak Square. But, you know, I think that we feel comfortable having this conversation about the location on Washington Street because we have been in operation in Grove Hall. And for the most part, we were the only dispensary in Boston. And we were successful to the point that we didn't get any feedback from our neighbors in terms of problems that we were causing, how we could be better community partners, issues or concerns. And so with that, we felt like if we could make it work in Grove Hall, we would be successful in being good neighbors on Washington Street.
Thank you, guys. All right, Deborah, I have you next in the queue. Folks, I've got a number of people chiming in, raising their hands. We'll get through everybody. Just be patient. So, Deborah, go ahead. Oh, sorry, I have to unmute you. I apologize, Deborah. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Connor, and thank you, Kobe and Kevin, for giving us this presentation. But I must say, as a person I am one street away from this proposed site. I live at Oak Square Ave, and I live right behind the shops that are on Washington Street in our block. And then between Oak Square Ave and Fairbanks Street are 3 more businesses. And then at Fairbanks up, there are 3 more businesses. So I do, Kobe, take exception to your categorizing this as being a kind of blighted area. As you said, it's kind of blighted in this area. That is not the case at all. We're a residential neighborhood, and it is fairly busy with the commercial properties that are already here. And I've lived here for 35 years, and I have to reiterate what particularly Barbara and Sheila said, and Leanne, about parking. I've had many businesses in the block in front of me that have completely overparked right down Oak Square Ave, right in front of my driveway. Sometimes I couldn't get out of my driveway. And there was a lot of double parking, especially when we had Paris restaurant there. And many, many cab drivers came from all over the city to go to that business and for takeout. And it was a nightmare. It truly was. And also, several of the people that spoke before me talked about the schools. The one school they didn't mention was the International Language School, which is on Lake Street. And that school is a bit of a problem for the liquor stores in the neighborhood, because I've been in our liquor store and seen those kids going in with fake IDs trying to buy liquor. And they're used to coming from countries like Germany and France and Italy and Spain, where they can drink at a younger age and they can also use pot. This is not a good location for your business. And when you were talking about maybe Grove Hall is a little more like Brighton Center, not quite like Oak Square, my question to you is, why aren't you going to Brighton Center? There are empty businesses in Brighton Center, and also there's parking there. And it's a business neighborhood. This is a residential neighborhood, and it just doesn't seem to me to be an appropriate fit. So I hope you can find someplace else that would have parking adjacent. And good luck with that.
Thank you, Deborah. And I think, you mentioned Kobe saying the neighborhood was blighted. I think he was specifically talking about Swan Cleaners, that being empty, that being, windows papered up. So I think just a clarification of that comment, Kobe, I think that's what you intended to say.
Thank you, Connor. I appreciate that.
Great. Deborah, so also, folks, like I said, if you've been called on, if you could please lower your hands so that way I'm not fishing through the comment section. Just going right down. Ren, I'll call on you next.
Yes, hi, thank you very much. My family has owned property in that area for almost 40 years. My sisters and I have grown up in that area and spent a lot of time playing on the streets in that community. So I have to completely agree with the last speaker, Deborah, with all the things that she said about the traffic and the students in that area. I understand why this area is appealing, as it's made tremendous strides in the last couple of years. I worry that this will reverse all the progress that has been made in beautifying that area and making it more of a community. As you know, a lot of families have moved into that area. There's a lot of elderly people that have lived there for 30 plus years. There's children, and you have all the students from Boston in that area. Being open from 10 to 10 is basically being open all the time. And this will attract a very different clientele to an area that has worked very hard to become a lot more family and community focused. And I know one of you compared this to a liquor store, and I understand that traditionally a liquor store will attract, some problematic clientele, but at least there's some variety in a liquor store where not everybody that's coming there is looking to get high. And I understand there's some assumptions with that, but that also creates risk to the children, the elderly people in that area. So I would have to agree with what Deborah said. I wish you the best of luck, but this really is not the right community for this kind of store and industry.
Thank you, Ren. Nancy DeRosa, I'll mute you now.
Hi, yes, sorry. I'm doing this from work. I apologize.
No worries.
I echo the concerns of people as far as this being the right location. I live on Langley Road as well. I'm very concerned about the lack of parking. I'm very concerned about the density of the neighborhood and this very much being a neighborhood. And I appreciate that. I think this would be much better suited in an area like Brighton Center, where it's much more commercial and not so residential. As an aside, and this may have nothing to do with anything, but I'm curious that Swan Cleaners was there for many, many years. And has there been anything that has occurred to make that location suitable for other habitation other than a dry cleaners? Like I was very concerned about the chemicals potentially in that building and whether or not that was actually sufficiently dealt with.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, Kobe, I'm not sure if you know what work has done on an existing space. I know I have seen some type of work crews in there in the past. I don't know if you guys could speak to that.
Yeah, so we are also in the process of potentially purchasing that property, and we have done some environmental testing, and right now the site is suitable for commercial use. I don't think it would be suitable for anything residential, but it is suitable for a commercial use such as, a cannabis retail operation.
Great, thank you guys. So once again, if you've had your hand raised and you've been called on, please lower your hands. Ada, I think. Ada Beckerly, I see that your hand is raised. Would you like to go ahead?
Hello, my name is Ada Beckerly. I am going to try to read my letter that I wrote to you. We are located at the store 10 feet away from the laundromat at 533 Washington Street. And to the store in question, the income of our stores are our livelihood. They come from a pizza store and an Asian store, and safety is a big issue. According to Freshler, who is an expert, marijuana crime researcher expert, the data is perplexing on who is coming to commit crimes or victims of marijuana outlets in neighborhoods. So I'm really concerned about the safety. Also, the customers of the marijuana outlets could be the victims or the perpetrators. So we really don't know. And the result of this is because the residents may want to mobilize if they see that this is a high crime neighborhood at this point. So the community that you're hearing on the phone is going to be affected by crime. If more people move out of the neighborhood because of crime, and our store livelihood will go down. I mean, we already had losses from coronavirus, so we don't want any more. In terms of the health consequences, they're also immense for kids and adults. There's increased risk of motor vehicle accidents, biking accidents, and lack of attention, just to name a few problems. The problems can occur all times of the day, not specific your hours. Other effects include worsening memory, thinking, concentration, movement and coordination while driving, sensory and time perception. This can lead to fear, anxiety, and distrust and panic in the community. And these were just a few effects of the marijuana, according to the National Institute of Drug Abuse. They also state that those who do drugs increase their chances of trying other drugs. So this is not just about having marijuana, you could invite other things. Also, recent research suggests that smoking high potency marijuana every day could increase the chances of developing psychosis by nearly 5 times compared to people who have never had marijuana before. And finally, they raise concern about exposure to vulnerable populations such as children and people with asthma. So this is a problem, a health problem as well. Ultimately, addictive marijuana could further contribute to the crime, which I mentioned already. Dependence or brain-altering substances for kids can also decrease the overall morale of the community and decrease the education status quo, which is the ideology of Boston as a high school community, high school area. Also, there are other horrifying aspects to marijuana, which passes through breastfeeding milk to babies. And finally, also marijuana drops
Ada, I don't mean to cut you off. you're kind of going into more of the medical effects of marijuana. None of that stuff is what we can verify right now. Specifically, we want to focus on this specific proposal at this specific location. So thank you. Next, we have caller 2860478. I'm going to unmute you if you'd like to go ahead.
Hi, I live on Fairbank Street, and I can see the Swan dry cleaning from my house. I think it's a great location. The 57 bus goes right in front of it. And do you plan on telling your customers that the 57 bus is an easy way to access the location? Because that would help BU students greatly, because the 57 bus goes right through there. I've hated seeing the empty location for years, and I'm thrilled that people are looking to revitalize the location and bring more people to our lovely neighborhood. I love this neighborhood. I've lived here for 6 years, and I think all the businesses should be supported. And with more people coming, it helps more businesses get supported, and we want successful businesses here. And so I just wanted to see if you would emphasize maybe the 57 bus, and that would help alleviate some of the parking concerns that people have.
I just want to say that we did not pay that caller.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Kobe, could you talk about other ways to incentivize people using public transit?
Yeah, so I mean, just today I was down at the shop and there was a girl in line with a blue bike. People have taken the bus from, parts of the city. I think that what we have to understand is that cannabis is a recreational drug, and there are a lot of people who visit Pure Oasis who have undiagnosed medical issues. And so it becomes more of a need for people to deal with anxiety or medical issues. And so people, it becomes more of a need. And so people will find a way, whether they walk, whether they run, whether they bike, whether they take a car sharing or whether they take a bus. But people do leave the shop, get on the bus, and head back home. And what we try and do is promote alternatives to driving, whether it be walking or I think I saw 3 skateboards in the shop today. People find alternatives to using cars to get to the shop.
Great, thank you. We have, so caller that I just called on, if you could hit *3 again, that would lower your hands. Like I said, if folks could actively lower their hands after they've been called on. We have call-in user 3860882.
Yes.
I'm unmuting you there. Yep, we can hear you.
Hello. Yes, hi. Another caller. I just want to voice my support for the business. I love that you guys are a minority-owned business with a focus on social justice. And in general, I think that, the average user seems to be misunderstood. A lot of my friends, use marijuana regularly, and they're all pretty successful, just regular working people. And I think that in general, maybe some of the, the average customer seems to be misunderstood a little bit on this call. But overall, I just wanted to voice my support for your business. I think that it's great that somebody's, trying to revitalize the Swan dry cleaning space. I live on Fairbank Street, and it's super close. So, I've hated walking past an empty building for the past 2 or 3 years, whatever it's been. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next caller, we have Dan Duffy. Dan, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes, I've been on Turner Street for 57 years, and I know the neighborhood very well. That corner doesn't need any more traffic. There's been some fatal accidents over the years, and it's hard to negotiate in the wintertime with the snow getting around that corner. There's nowhere to park. I'm not against your business at all. I think alcohol is worse than marijuana, but I don't think we really need it in that location. There's no parking, and those stores are also destination stores for people looking to get high, besides the medical people that need it. But I have to oppose it. I'm not opposing your business, but not in that location. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Dan. Next caller, Xiao Wei. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that.
You pronounced that right. So I will actually be speaking on behalf of my father. So we have lived here in this location since I believe 2010. And I guess our concerns really echo what everyone else's really is. It's the parking. It's honestly a pain in the ass to find parking here as a resident. And all the stores that are along Washington Street, everyone kind of just, places their order, double parks, runs in and grabs it and leaves. Our concern with that is, with another, big store as yours opening up at that location, it will just increase the amount of cars that are, double parked there, or parking spots that are, would typically go to residentials, would be taken up. And as Dan has said, that street or that's, specific corner, there's a lot of heavy traffic there, especially during rush hour. Buses, they fly down that corner. I have rode that bus. My whole family rides that bus. We cross that street very, very frequently, and buses really just fly down it. And you maybe won't be able to see that as often now due to, everyone working from home due to COVID. But, when life does return back to normal and people do start commuting again, it's just an awful street to drive up and down on. And it just with the increase of, customers coming down to this part of the neighborhood, yeah, it's just not great is what we would say.
Thank you for that comment. All right, going down the list, Ava Webster. Ava?
Yes, hello, Conor. Thank you. I have a couple of questions to you, if you don't mind, but pertinent to the topic of the meeting. How many marijuana stores are expected or allowed to open in Boston, and what number out of that Boston-wide number is supposed to end up in Allston Brighton?
Thank you, Ava. So I believe the numbers that I've seen, because it's linked to the number of liquor licenses in the city of Boston. The number I've heard is eventually there'd be around 52 marijuana dispensaries. I don't have an exact number of how many would hypothetically be in the Allston Brighton neighborhood. With the half-mile buffer, that would kind of block off a lot of space. So very likely, as I explained to another resident today, the email, there definitely will be more than one cannabis establishment in the Allston Brighton entity. So,
but there are several that are being proposed, and a few of them have already been approved. And the presenter, Mr. Evans, mentioned earlier that he anticipates that there will be more stores, so the clientele will be able to go to the local store and they won't be coming to somebody else's neighborhood. And I'm just, wondering, are we supposed to accept that we are going to have marijuana stores every few blocks in Allston Brighton? Because if it's tied to the alcohol licenses, I know that there are efforts underway to increase the number of alcohol licenses in Boston. So does that mean that it would come hand in hand with increasing the number of marijuana stores?
So that's a question. That's a very good question. I'd have to check in with the Boston Cannabis Board. I don't know if that license increases, like you said, with that inflate the numbers of cannabis establishments. Regarding every couple of blocks, there is right now the existing buffer that they have to be spaced out at least half a mile. There has been cases where the ZBA has approved more than one marijuana establishment within half a mile. I believe one of those was in East Boston, although recently the board shot down a proposal in Hyde Park that would have been within a half-mile buffer. So it's an extra hardship they have to go through that the Zoning Board of Appeals takes a look at. But I think with that rationale of spacing it out with the half mile, you wouldn't quite have, a giant strip of, a strip mall full of cannabis establishments.
Yes,
But regarding the number of liquor licenses increasing and would that impact it? That's a very good question that I don't know the answer of here tonight, but I can definitely check in with the Cannabis Board.
Right, okay, that would be helpful, thank you. I just want to register my feelings about this whole issue. I am adamantly opposed to glamorizing marijuana use. Some people are not susceptible to addiction, but many people are. And when the presenter, Mr. Evans, said earlier that it becomes a need for certain users, to come and get it to calm their anxieties, that need is often an addiction. And I don't think that the city should be in the business of promoting addictions of any kind. And it was very disappointing to see in the Globe today an article about acting mayor Kim Janey essentially soliciting donations from the marijuana industry entrepreneurs. We are a city of very diverse people. In some cultures, marijuana use can be okay and nobody has a problem with it. But I come from a culture where any drug use is frowned upon and it bugs me. I don't want young people in my neighborhood to be walking up and down the street or congregating in our town center or smoking in my neighbor's yard. Rental houses have the tenants that may be smoking in their backyards and the stench will be wafting to other people's homes. So I don't know how we are going to deal with it, but I just think that just because people want to make money in this industry, it doesn't mean that it should be shoved down our throats if people oppose it. And it happened to us in Cleveland Circle. The ZBA approved this and we will be seeing consequences because we have a lot of underage students who nobody supervises and they will be getting addicted to it and it will be conflicting with their ability to concentrate and study and so on. And one last thing, but I know nobody wants to listen because, the politicians are on board, so we have to get on board. But I am not getting on board and I hope that other people won't either. Just last question. This is a public meeting, Conor.
Yes.
So if, when someone calls in and they just say, oh, I live here, we have no way of verifying that this is actually true. Can you please be asking people for their names and their address where they live? And also I have a question, why can't we see other attendees' names?
Yes. So I can answer that regarding asking people to identify where they live. That is not a requirement in our public meetings, and it never has been. And I don't anticipate changing it here tonight. Regarding the format of being able to see other applicants, typically, as Ava, you've attended other meetings that I've hosted regarding a number of issues. I typically use the WebEx format for meetings. I was instructed by my superiors that for marijuana meetings, it needs to be in the WebEx event format. So that kind of changes. It allows me to have a bit more control if there's people that need to be muted if they're not following along. Personally, I like the meeting format more than the event format, but those are my instructions. So
I know, but we cannot see our neighbors who agree with us. This is a manner in which you are disenfranchising us because we need to know who are the people who think like us.
Ava, I think you've heard from a number of folks tonight, specifically abutters within the 300 feet. So I understand, I think The people in Oak Square know how to get in touch with each other, so I understand your concerns. We're going to move forward. So
Yeah,
thank
but
you.
I'm a neighborhood-wide activist, not just, for one neighborhood or another. We need to know one another across Allston Brighton. That's why we have
Right.
our homeowners union. Thank you.
Thank you, Eva. All right, folks, going back into it. We have, folks, like I said, if you have your hand raised, please lower your hand so it's easier for me to call on folks. Gary, you're up next.
Yeah, thank you, Connor, and thank you, Ms. Evans and Mr. Hart, for your presentation. You guys are very likable guys. I like you, never met you. But I do oppose because of the just the neighborhood. I live on the corner of Washington and Oak Square Ave. So I live right on one block from you guys. And I've been here 30 years. My wife and I am owner occupied. And there is a school, Mary Lyons, 0.2 miles away. And I have to agree with a lot of the previous speakers about accidents and parking. I've witnessed 3 accidents, people getting hit by cars right on Washington. And the parking is really an issue around here. Now, what I see is we have 3 bus lines, 2 express buses, and the 57, and everyone going and coming from the Mass Pike exit 17 comes through Oak Square. And living on the corner of Washington and Oak Square Ave, all the traffic coming from Cambridge on the other side of the river, they tend to come down Soldiers Field Road, Brook Street, and Oak Square Ave is a cut through. It's the only one way coming to Washington other than Beechcroft. So right now cars speed down Oak Square Ave, and it's just going to increase the traffic. My issues are in what I see is I'm the guy that I love this neighborhood. As I mentioned, I've been here 30 years. Today, I picked up a box in the middle of the street of Washington Street. I'm the guy who goes out there and picks it up. I sweep the sidewalk, cigarette butts. So I truly do care about our neighborhood. You wouldn't believe the amount of times people come off the bus and urinate in our driveway. I know this is weird. Litter, the BC students come down, they beer cans and at night and stuff. And so I've been to the Brookline dispensary, and I don't oppose marijuana. I don't oppose dispensaries at all. I agree with them. It's just not the right neighborhood. The Brookline dispensary, I've actually been there. The traffic was horrendous. I have a question. Will you have a detailed police officer there? Do you suspect that? That's one question I had. The parking is just crazy. The buses do fly by. There's no crosswalks on this street, and everyone's double parked. People have parked in my driveway. I've had to have them towed. They block my driveway. And yeah, you mentioned the Newbury factory outlet, New Balance. I think that's a great area. I just don't think Oak Square is the right area for this. That's about it. That's about it. The traffic is bad here. So I oppose it, but I wish the best of luck to you guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Gary. Yes, Kobe. So would you guys, as Gary mentioned, police details, is that something you consider in this location, something you've used in Grove Hall?
So we for the last year, maybe the last, I would say the last year, we have been the only dispensary in Boston proper. There was one that opened in East Boston, and never, even on our busiest day, has it been an issue with traffic to justify having a detail. Netta was the first dispensary in Eastern Massachusetts, and Brookline mandated that they had a detail. If you drive by, 9 times out of 10, the detail is standing around talking to another security guard. But in terms of actually having a real function, it was more of a mandate than a need. And I think the reality is like you said, there will be, close to 50 dispensaries in Boston. and every neighborhood will have at least one, if not multiple. And so there will not be people coming from Brookline to pass Netta to go to, 535 Washington Street. Ultimately, everyone will be insulated in their own neighborhood and have similar to their own liquor store, own corner store, own coffee shop in that neighborhood, that they aren't traveling far distances to go for much. So we don't anticipate having a detail. I don't think that there currently is or is any plan for any dispensary in Boston to have a detail.
Great, thank you. Bruno, calling you next.
Hi, thanks for the meeting, and I just wanted to support all the people who oppose this location. And again, it's because of the traffic constraints. Parking has been an issue here for a long time. It's only getting worse. And also the traffic impacts. You don't realize it now, but it's just gonna increase traffic, and parking is already an issue. And I know everybody else has said that, but you have to consider that. It's just not a great location. I do support, and I voted for marijuana, but it's just not a good area to put it in. So again, and also, no one mentioned property values. I'm not sure what's gonna happen with property values, but I don't know if people just want to say, yeah, I'm going to buy a house where there's more traffic, parking is an issue, and all this other stuff. So those are my concerns. I just wanted to support the people who oppose it.
Thank you, Bruno. All right, up next, going down the list, folks, I know a couple of people had additional questions, so we will get to you in just a second after we clear the first list. Farah, you're up next.
Hi, yeah, I live at Langley Road in Brighton, actually, and it's right when we walk down Langley Road, you're right in there in front of the proposed dispensary. And I totally oppose it, even though I actually supported marijuana, we voted for it because we believe that people should be able to use it for health reasons. And but we actually also like support Mr. Hart and Mr. Evans for their sincere thoughts about bringing social justice and employment for people. Thank you so much. We know you in Grove Hall, Dorchester, you tried to do that. That's great. Thank you. But we just definitely do not think this area is the right area. It's the residential area. It's not Grove Hall, in Dorchester. It's a residential area. People live here with their children. There's so many schools around here, and I guess maybe you don't know about the neighborhood so much because you thought there are no schools. There are several schools here. There are colleges here. There are young people in here. And the traffic, as everybody had mentioned, I'm not going to go on and on. The traffic is horrific. Parking is horrific. Often we come home, we cannot find parking. A lot of times we see people from out of town parking on Langley Road. It's really frustrating that we cannot park around here. We don't have a driveway, but we see people from out of the state or out of neighborhood parking in here and go shopping. And I hate to tell you that a lot of businesses here, they open up and they close down, they go bankrupt because of parking issues. So we really oppose having this dispensary in there. Maybe you can go, actually, I think it's a great idea to think about New Balance because there's a lot of space in there, and that's a great place in here, and parking is easy in there. And thank you.
Thank you, Farah.
Thank you, Conor.
All right, next comment, William King.
Hi, I'm Liz King. My husband is right here. I wanted to ask, how long is a person usually in the store at a time? And that being the case, why can't you use the parking spot that's behind the building? And if there's a short amount of time, then it would probably be fine to use that building because people are only there for in and out. If you could answer those questions, sir.
Thank you, Liz. Kobe?
I'm going to have Kevin answer this one. Kevin's been pretty quiet.
I've actually been talking the entire time. It's just I realized my I was on mute, so I'm sorry. No. So our usual turnaround time, all told, is about 7 minutes. So, and that takes into consideration wait time and then actual time at the register. So, we pride ourselves on our operations and our throughput. And because of that, we've actually gotten it down to like 7 minutes, which, we think is almost unheard of in these types of businesses.
Great. And Liz mentioned parking perhaps in the rear. Is there on-site parking with the building? I know there's kind of like a paved but grassy grown over spot in the rear. Is that something that would be incorporated in the operation?
What we try and do is for operational integrity and security, we don't like customers to be on the actual property, especially in the back for parking. We would probably use it for some sort of staff parking and just to keep the building secure, keep the fence up and keep it locked. Where we have in Grove Halls, we have parking in the back for staff. And so in Brighton, we would probably use that back. If we did have any parking there, it would be staff parking.
Gotcha. Thank you, Kobe. All right, going down the list, folks, once again, a reminder, if you have your hand raised, please lower it after you've been called on so I can take you off the list. Wayne Webster, go ahead.
Thank you, Connor. We live on Oak Square Avenue, and the traffic here is terrific. And people, I think, are directed down here by GPS. And so our street is a real thoroughfare. When you get to Washington Street, on top of that, you have to turn left to get to what is now what was Swan Cleaners. That's an awful left turn. There are cars parked on Washington Street. It's very difficult to see, but that's what people will have to do. The other thing is, I do have a question. If this project is approved as is planned, when do you expect to open?
Thank you, Kobe. I'll turn that over to you guys.
It's hard to say. There are some variables that go into the process that are outside of our control, but it would probably be early 2022 next year.
I would prefer that it were in Brighton Center where there is more parking available. It's just neighborhood is just too congested as it is. Too many accidents and people block driveways and everything else. It's just not doable from the point of view of a resident. But thank you for entertaining the question.
Thank you, Wayne. All right, going down the list, we have Julie Kenny. Julie?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I am Julie Kenny. I live on Langley Road, which is directly across from Swan Cleaners. And I just want to say in general that I oppose the location. And I do have a question. One is, how many employees do you typically have in the store at one time, and where do you think they're going to be parking, when they come to work? And then also, I guess, what drew you to this location as opposed to Brighton Center or some of the other more commercial areas around Alston, Brighton? Because of the location of this particular store, with the streets, the cross streets of Fairbanks, Langley Road, Graymere, and then the main street itself, Washington, traffic is just always a huge issue. And then with the mobility study that's happening in Alston and Brighton, and the proposal to possibly remove parking from part of Faneuil Street, is going to, just tighten that up even more. For this street, for all surrounding streets in that area. And then also, the construction of the Mass Turnpike. I mean, that whole construction project is just going to pour traffic into Alston Brighton, trying to, avoid that area. I know that's not it's not under your control. But I just think you're really putting a commercial business into a residential area. There's houses directly abutting this project. There's families directly across the street from you on Langley Road with young babies and children. There is a school, there is the YMCA, there's the teen center from the YMCA. I just really think that the location that you're choosing is not a great one. The business itself, I think, would be great, but in a more commercial space and area. Thank you.
Thanks, Julie. Hasia, could you guys speak to number of employees, what attracted you to the Oak Square location? Go ahead.
Number of employees, for that location, we anticipate 10 employees per shift. That's probably on the high side. And so what we try and do is to hire within the community. And I think someone mentioned, you know, there are a lot of college students and younger people in that neighborhood. And we generally don't have a problem hiring. And ideally, we would want to hire people who could get there in a snowstorm and walk to work and kind of give back to the community. I think that if I'm not mistaken, I think there was a K through 12 school in Brighton Center currently. And there are also, you know, a number of applicants who are in the process of applying for Brighton Center or who have tried to apply for Brighton Center. You know, and also because there was an existing commercial business there, what we were looking to do was to mirror the amount of traffic that was existing for the cleaners and not to necessarily add new traffic to the neighborhood. Swan Cleaners, probably at its heyday, was, you know, relatively busy, and in an ideal world, we would want to emulate that level of activity and not necessarily increase that. So those are some of the factors that went into considering the location.
Thank you. Folks, we're entering the second round of comments. Ren, I believe you had another question. I'll unmute you now.
Yes, thank you. I have essentially 3 comments. I want to echo some of the things that were said before. You know, because of COVID, we have to use this format. We can't get together. So this format should simulate what we would normally do during a town hall. So not sharing or making the chat public, not making the participant list public really does not breed transparency. It does not breed community. You know, a previous speaker had mentioned that we'd like to know who feels similarly to us, and we won't have access to that. Whereas if this was an open town hall, we would be able to have that information. So it does seem a little bit strategic and not transparent. The other thing I want to emphasize is that the long-term or even acute neurocognitive or brain function effects of marijuana have not been proved. I'm not going to get into the ethics of this, but I think you're hearing consistently that there's a problem with traffic and accidents in that area. And now you are attracting people whose brains may be altered in a community of children, elderly, and students. And this is just not a good location for you. And lastly, Kobe, you just mentioned that at night that you're going to have to add security locks to make sure that the facility is safe. So if this is not going to impair the safety of this community, why would you have to take those additional steps? At 10 o'clock, you leave, your employees leave, but other people in this area live there. So if you see that there is a threat to the property that you have to offer additional security, you are imposing that threat on everybody else that lives in that area. So again, this is a residential community. This is not appropriate for the kind of market that you're looking for, and you should go somewhere else that's more commercially oriented. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ren. All right. Ada, I believe your sister had another question. I'm unmuting you. I can't locate her phone number in the list. So if you want to put her on, Ada. I'm sorry, you're cutting in and out. You want to go ahead, Ada's sister?
Yes, go ahead. Oh, hold on. Sorry, one second. She hung up.
No, no worries, no worries.
Go ahead. Can you talk? I'm sorry about that. That's all right. Go ahead.
Yeah. We're 5 feet away from the location that's being proposed. We're 40 years members of this community and business owners. We strongly oppose this. This is a residential area, and I know a lot of this has been said, but I want to emphasize some other points. The residential area with elderly that have been living there for decades. You have young families that you're going to be exposing them to this type of business and the clientele that comes along with it. I'm a physician myself, and I understand the need for medicinal marijuana, but there's also the recreational use, and my concern is who it will attract to that area. So the message you're sending to those kids is the wrong message. Someone else has mentioned the ethnicity of the area and the people that are not interested in this type of business and strongly oppose it as well. I'm concerned about property values. I'm concerned about property values, the traffic that's already been mentioned, the car accidents that have happened in that area due to excessive traffic, and the parking situation. I oppose this type of business, but I also, especially not in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Sheila, I think you had an additional comment. Sheila, go ahead.
Thanks, Conor. You called on me too quickly the last time. I forgot what I was going to say. But I have actually a couple of extra things to say now. I guess one of the major issues has been mentioned, but again, I don't oppose a marijuana dispensary at all. I voted for legalization, and I applaud their social justice mission. That's what I've worked in for most of my life. So I just don't have an issue with this, but the location right on the corner there is just lethal. We had a car totaled, a brand new 3-month-old car totaled because of double parking on that street, right opposite the Swan Cleaners, directly opposite, because there was a bus and double parking. You go down there any time of the day or night, you'll see people double parked all the time, and especially in the evening. So if they're going to be open till 10 o'clock, it's all double parking all the time. So it's making that whole, and it's very busy. There's a lot of foot traffic there, and it's very busy. So it's going to make that whole area really far more dangerous in terms of traffic than it is already. Our building is 3 doors up from the proposed dispensary. We're the only driveway in both directions for quite a bit. I'm not sure where the driveway is up towards Brighton Centre, but we're the only driveway. We're already used as a parking lot for the existing businesses. 5-6 cars every day come and park in the driveway. If I pull down to allow my husband to pull his truck in, I get blocked in. Again, almost every day this happens. So that's already a huge issue for me. And when I hear them talking about operational security, that they won't be allowing their customers to park because of operational security, I'm not sure where that leaves me, because I know they'll be parking in my driveway. So who's going to take care of my operational security? Should I be really concerned about that? I just don't like the sound of that at all. So the other thing I think is it's a very large space. The Swan Cleaner is a huge property. So, and 50 dispensaries in the whole of Boston, when you take in East Boston, South Boston, Dorchester, Mattapan, Hyde Park, and Allston, Brighton, is a huge area. And that's not very many dispensaries. So I think the crowds are going to be massive. They're massive everywhere else. And I don't think it's going to be any different. You go out to Newton, you see the lines outside the place there, but at least there's parking there. So this place has no parking. It's going to cripple the whole neighborhood with the lack of parking, and it's going to make the whole neighborhood more dangerous. Before the pandemic, there were traffic jams all the way down to Oak Square every evening from up to Brighton Centre, all the way down. They're down past 551 where we are. So it's just a huge issue, and I really do wish them luck, but this is not the place, guys. It really isn't the place. You need parking. You have to have parking. I'm done now, Conor. Thank you. You can switch me off.
Thanks, Sheila. All right. I also want to note there was a couple of questions and comments in the chat as well. Another resident echoing concerned about the late hours and late night noise that might bring. Also concerned about impact on property values. A resident was inquiring. Kobe, you guys had mentioned that you were interested in buying the building, but at this time, is there a landlord that you're specifically dealing with or a property management group? The constituent would like to know more about that.
Is that a question, Connor?
Yes, all right, sorry. Yes, that's a question. Who currently is the property management group or owner that you're dealing with? And you mentioned that you're interested in buying it.
Yeah,
At
so
some
we have
point-
we have a signed purchase and sale agreement with the current owner, which is a LLC. It was formerly owned by City Realty, and so I think probably City Realty is the property manager currently.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then we also had some in the question and answer bar. Some resident asked if a traffic study has been conducted. My assumption is no. Let me try to read the other ones. My apologies. And then this, I guess, is more directed for myself. What shops are going through the community process and have not yet been approved in Alston, Brighton? That's a lengthy one. So far, only the Cleveland Circle proposal in 1937 Beacon Street was approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. The other location on North Beacon was shot down by the ZBA, but is currently going through the Superior Court to overturn that decision. Those are the only ones. There's a location, Union Twist on Cambridge Street, that has cleared the Cannabis Board, I believe, but has not gone to the Zoning Board of Appeals yet. I think that's coming up. Mayflower, which is another one located in Alston on Harvard Ave, went through the Cannabis Board. They're coming up at the ZBA, I believe. And then the Oak Square, excuse me, the Oak Square and the Brighton Center one, we conducted 2 community meetings for that. They have not been to the Boston Cannabis Board yet at this time. And I think that covers a number of active proposals. There's one on Lincoln Street, on the end of Lincoln Street, where it runs into Leo Birmingham. They are interested in pursuing a public meeting, which I will set up at some point. That'll be advertised in my newsletter, in addition to folks receiving the flyers as well. So I think that's covered. We've received a number of applications, and there's probably likely to be more applications coming at some points. But with the half-mile rule, that would pretty much prevent a lot of parts of Alston, Brighton from having additional ones. So with that, I don't see further questions and comments. Folks, I'll give anyone else a chance. If there's something that maybe we haven't covered yet. Call in user 2, I see you got your hand raised. 860478. Go ahead.
Hi, I just wanted to reiterate that, you know, I think this is a great location. If everyone is concerned with parking and accidents, which are a legitimate major issue, we should contact our local elected officials, and that shouldn't stop successful businesses from coming to the area and benefiting from the area. I don't think parking or cars in Brighton Center is that different from Oak Square. It's very close to the 2 liquor stores across the street from each other, which are equally close to the Y and the schools that also have to be locked up at night for safety concerns. So it's all very equivalent, and it's, you know, this is a great thing for the neighborhood. It helps an empty storefront. And if it doesn't work out, they can always leave. Like, it's not as bad as everyone thinks it is. I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Folks, further questions, comments? It's difficult for me if you have had your hand raised this entire time and I've already called on you. I don't know if you have an additional question or if you just accidentally have your hand raised. So if you could please reach out in the chat bar. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes. If anyone else, maybe who has not had a chance to speak yet, if you'd like to go ahead. Ada, I see you have a question. Hold on. Ada, go ahead.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I really like this forum because actually you get to hear a lot of people speak, especially with this COVID. But I really appreciate the last person's comments. However, I completely disagree because having a new opportunity and like a business opportunity does not have to come with a risk. You know, when someone goes into a pizza store, they don't have to have an accident when they come out. It's not 100%, but it's significantly more likely with marijuana. I mean, the number, if you do a search on the number of hospitals and how busy they are about after having been approved as a marijuana state, you'll see how many more accidents there are in comparison to states that have not accepted marijuana yet. So this is a big deal. So please, not in this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ada. Caller 4. So you have a hand raised 617-782. Sorry, there's some that just popped up in the chat bar. All right, caller 4, you're good to go. Caller 4, hello?
I don't know if I'm calling them before. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, I didn't know if I was 4. I don't see any 4s anywhere. But my name is Mike Beats. I live on Graymere, right around the corner from the proposed shop. My street's a dead-end street. I have no parking as it is, and people are all going to park here. I know they are. They park here from out of state and from everywhere else. But this area, this turn, it happens to be, there's a curve in the road on Washington Street right there in front of the store. And I don't know if you guys who live here a lot, you know that when they come off the turnpike, they come off the Mass Pike, people come in and they're still driving fast because they're so used to being on the pike. So they come through Oak Square very fast, way too fast. And that's why there's been fatalities in front of the Swan place, because it's a curve there. It's a blind curve. They come bombing down that street and go to turn, and they don't see what's going on. If you've ever seen the traffic on rush hour, like before COVID, or someone else already said it, it goes all the way from Brighton Center down through Oak Square. Not to mention if there's a Boston College event like hockey game, basketball game, football game, you people see that the traffic is all the way backed up. I don't know where you're going to put these people for the pot shop. When there is no traffic, they go too fast. And when there is traffic, it doesn't move and it's backed up all over our neighborhood. Zero parking. And I just feel that like over Grove Hall, it's a commercial area. And here at Swan, it's a very residential area. This is residential. So I'm opposed to it for those reasons. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Comment in the chat. Could project folks pay for crossing guard to help stop double parking or parking in the driveways? Kobe, I'll hand that over to you guys. That also might tie into your security operation. Would there be the external side of things outside the building?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do at Pure Oasis is we establish a culture where when we have a security guard out front, and so you have to have your ID checked before you come into the store. So if the security guard sees that you have double parked your car, you will not be allowed in the store. So that's one of the controls that we use, is the security guard make sure that if he sees anyone double parking their car, you're not allowed in the store.
Great, thank you. Ava, I see your hand is raised again.
Yes, thank you. I just have a question. Conor, if a store is approved at the Zoning Board of Appeal, because this is a conditional use, then the applicants need to get the actual full license, right? How much time expires from the time when the store is approved at the ZBA for a variance and the time when they are fully licensed and can open?
So after the ZBA, I know they would go to the Cannabis Control Commission that would then look at the whole procedure and look at their operation side. Kobe, with your experience of having an approved business, the time that you were approved at the ZBA to the time that you went to the CCC, how much time had elapsed there?
So I'm not sure if that's the question she's asking. I think that she was asking the inverse in terms of how much time would we have in total before the deal would probably die. But in a normal world, you go to the ZBA, you get your approval, that completes your application, you submit that to the CCC, and within 60 to 75 days, you probably have your provisional. That's in a normal time. Again, if I'm hearing the question correctly, I'm not sure if anyone has tested the parameters. If there's no action, everyone goes through the process with the expectation of after your variance, then you submit to the CCC, and within 3 months you have your provisional.
Right. What if I may pick your brains on this? At what point in the process can the community weigh on the terms of the license, the hours of operations, the days, how many people can be in the store, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I think Conor could probably answer that one better.
Yeah, so it's ultimately, I know Boston Cannabis Board is the one that works with them on a host community agreement and kind of setting those parameters. And sometimes the Zoning Board of Appeals can weigh in as well. There's not really a system where residents directly say, we want, certainly there can be conversations between residents and the applicant regarding a number of things such as, hours of operation, specific details, community benefits. Something the city cannot get involved in is community benefits.
You cannot get involved in community benefits?
That's something that has to be a conversation between the applicant and members of the community.
But what happened in Cleveland Circle is that Happy Valley was instructed to get in touch with the neighborhood about community benefits and mitigation, and they have never done it. And we don't know who to ask for help with that.
So that's something, like I said, I can't instruct an applicant to say you need to give X amount hypothetically to this operation or this particular program. That's what my like I said, that's a conversation that goes on with civic associations and whatnot. If this is something regarding Cleveland Circle, happy to talk to you tomorrow about that when I'm in the office.
Okay, I don't want to take your time. Thank you. I'll be emailing you. Thanks.
Perfect. All right. Do we have other hands raised? All right, so we have time for two more. I'm going to read one from the comments, and then we're going to go back to Ada real quick. With the project would the applicant consider 2 security guards, one for IDs and one for double parking to ensure no one parks in the family driveway? There seems to be a ton of concerns regarding traffic and parking. Lastly, are these local businesses or out of state? I believe, Kobe, you guys have mentioned they're a local business. They currently have a location in Grove Hall and are based in Massachusetts. But Kobe, I'll direct that to you. Would you consider additional security in the front to handle both?
Yeah. So again, our goal is to be good, if not great, community partners. And the security guard that we currently use in Grove Hall, for lack of a better term, he polices the front of the store to make sure that no one is double parking or causing a nuisance. If there are issues with cars parking in driveways, we would be more than happy to take down the license plates, work with our contacts at Boston Police Department, and we could give warnings and ultimately bar people from coming to the store if we find that they are becoming a nuisance to our neighbors.
Excellent, thank you. Ada, I'll close it out with you. You have one final question?
So to me, this seems like a massive operation. I mean, to hire 10 employees at a time inside that small space. I mean, how much business are you guys gonna have? How much are you anticipating from your experience? 10 people at a time? I don't know. All our stores, they don't have 10 people at a time. And that's per shift. So how much volume are you guys expecting?
So the number 10, thank you for the question. The number 10 isn't, it is looking at the total number of employees in the building, which would include the security folks that we had just talked about who would be checking IDs, ensuring that parking rules are followed.
That's 2.
So that's 2. So now we're at 8. So then there's 2 more inside. So now we're at 6. And then there will be three people, as Kobe said, on a register, and then 3 people in the back helping to prepare the products.
Wow, 3 people on the register. That's like busier than Dunkin' Donuts, for God's sakes. 3 on a register?
No,
So busy.
I think Netta has 20 people on registers.
Yeah, but not for that location, sir. I understand. I'm not that opposed to business, but not in this location. Just seems like an unbelievable volume that you guys are gonna have. Tons of people are gonna come. You're only the 2nd store in the Boston area. Everyone is gonna come to you. Everything that was just said in opposition, I completely agree with, and I think you guys are gonna cause so many more unfortunate incidents. I don't want to say what it is, but I think everyone knows what I'm talking about. It's very, I'm very saddened by this. Not at
Thank you, Ada.
Thank you.
All right, folks, I think we've covered questions and comments. Like I said, it's difficult. Folks are keeping their hands up. I don't know if there's new folks or people with additional questions or comments, but as I stated at the beginning of this meeting, this public meeting, this is an open comment period. At any point, folks can reach out to my office. If there's a question specific for the applicant, I can put you in touch with them and we can try to get you that information. They do not have a date at this time with the Boston Cannabis Board. When that does, though, please, before that, I should say, shoot me an email and I can have you on file and I can notify you when a hearing date has been set. As I mentioned, there's none scheduled at this time. Community process will continue. I think there's a question, would you guys go on to the Brighton Allston Improvement Association at some point? I think that's something that I'm happy to put you in touch with the local civic leader on that front. And yeah, we'll go from there. Thanks everyone for participating. Certainly you've given a lot of public comments, a lot of feedback that these guys can take a look at. And like I said, our office continues to take public comments, as does Councilor Braden's and other elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.